I don't want a lot for Christmas. There's just one thing I need. I don't care about the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true. All I want for Christmas is
I'm very sorry that the music doesn't play on Google Meet. It was so good. It was All I Want for Christmas Is You on the Love Actually soundtrack, but so it goes. That's okay. There's a learning curve here, obviously. So, how are all of you doing? Thank you so much for coming tonight. Today's going to be exciting. We're going to learn about our nervous system and whether it's responding positively, negatively, or in a neutral way to some drills that we do. And this is really fun for me to go through with people for the first time, or I know in some of your cases, not the first time, but as the person getting to try these things, which are a little bit of a different take on nervous system training or calming, you are in for a treat. So, we're just going to start with our check in as usual. And if you would like to join with your eyes closed, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can keep your eyes open, and I'm just going to get you to sit up tall or relax into the seat that you have and see if you can slow your breathing down in through your nose. Exhale out. You could do a breath in and then a sigh if that feels better. Just shake it off. Get all that energy out from the day. And if you like, you can begin to rub your hands together. Just get a sense of what your hands feel like. See if you can warm them up. Notice whether your hands are cold or warm. And if their temperature is changing as you do this. And then let's just place our hands over our chest and see if you can feel your heart beating under your hands. We're tuning into our sense of interoception with this exercise. And as you're breathing in and out, just pay attention to your chest rising and falling. And then you can bring your hands down, maybe roll your shoulders a couple times. Do a little bit of a stretch through your body, whatever feels nice for you. And then if your eyes are closed, you can open them up and join me here. I think everyone, at least here in Google Meet, is good for the workbook, but I'll just throw it into the Google or into the Facebook group in case you would like it, person in the Facebook group. And there's also a Google Meet link if you would like to join us there. It's more fun in the Google Meet room. So If you don't have something nice to smell, I encourage you to go grab something. I've got essential oil, but you could use lip balm or a scented candle or coffee beans or your chai tea latte, whatever works for you, as I do a bit of a recap of our session from yesterday. We talked all about boundaries yesterday and why our previous experiences can sometimes make the very thought of setting a boundary feel terrifying and prevent us from wanting to do it. We also discussed how being able to set boundaries and express ourselves authentically is the way to strengthen the depth and connection of our relationships, as well as why it has been hard up until now to set boundaries because you haven't been regulating your nervous system beforehand. I also introduced you to my program, Rewired for Resilience. It's a 12-week small group coaching program designed to help you break out of the cycle of chronic stress and overwhelm by empowering you to set boundaries, stop people pleasing, and learn how to powerfully regulate your nervous system, which is what we're covering today, of course. If any of you do have questions about the content that we've covered or the Rewired for Resilience program, please feel free to unmute yourself if you're here live or in the chat. You're welcome to type in questions, or you can reach out to me using Facebook Messenger or email, whatever's easier for you. Before we get started, I would like to ask my poll question for today, which is, I'm curious, which of the following activities or tools do you use to help decrease your stress? I have a bunch here, so you can raise your hand or type A, B, C into the comments. Does anyone do breathing or any kind of breath work? Yeah, nice, okay. How about yoga or Pilates, something more movement based? Yeah, nice, perfect. Anyone a meditator? Yeah. How about exercise in general? Getting out for a walk or a run or cross country skiing? Nice. Perfect. And anyone like time in nature to help calm them down? Yes. Okay, great. Are there any other things that you can think of that I didn't mention that you like to do? If you can't, that's okay. Totally fine. All right. And my follow up question to that is, when you are doing these activities, do you get the results that you want to all the time? I know sometimes I'm really bad at being distracted, like if I'm trying to sit and meditate or recite mantras, and then I'm like, oh, I just have so much going on. I need to like check my phone, or I need to go multitask and, put vegetables in the oven to roast or something so that I can feel productive while I'm doing something. And it kind of defeats the purpose of that relaxation effect sometimes. So I'm going to suggest that I might not be alone in this, and maybe you also weren't sure at times whether you were spending that time positively for your nervous system. And if you were finding that it helped, maybe the changes weren't as long lasting as they could be because they weren't necessarily made at the level of your nervous system. Especially, as I mentioned, if you are trying a quieter practice where you're trying to sit still and look within, but your busy mind prevents you from doing that as easily. And I know sometimes it feels like, ugh, there's no point in even trying, I'm failing. But there is a reason why that's happening. And in today's session, I'm going to show you how you can tell whether your healing practices are having a positive, negative, or neutral effect on your nervous system with an objective measurement. So without further ado, we are going to get started by going through some different objective measurements that you can use so that we can test and retest after we do the drills. And if you've been in my Facebook group for a while, you'll have an idea of where I'm going with this, but I want to teach you how to assess the impact of these drills by trying some different movements and getting a sense of how far you're going and what it feels like. And I also want to make sure you're not moving into any pain, because remember, if we go back to our threat bucket analogy, once we start to see that threat level rise and then pain gets produced as an output, if pain is being produced and then we add more threat by moving into the pain, it usually doesn't make the pain go away. So keep that in mind, and let's just start with some neck rotation. So sitting up nice and tall and then turning your head side to side. Try 2 or 3 times in each direction and just see how far you get to and what it feels like at the end of the movement. Great. Nice, looking good. And then reaching your arms up and overhead. We're going to do some shoulder flexion here. If this doesn't feel great, or you can't really tell how far you're going, you can look up and just see where your arms get to. And then our third one we'll do is called trunk rotation. So you can either reach your hands out like you're pointing your fingers at something, like a James Bond movie, and just sitting or standing, see how far you can go and where your fingers end up pointing. So pick something in the room that your fingers are pointing at, and that'll give you an indication of whether or not they're changing, or whether we're getting farther or closer. Farther or closer? We're going farther or not with the drills. And the reason why we can do this to test how effective the drills are is because our nervous system's response to the right kind of input is lightning fast and systemic. And this means that if we're able to activate any aspect of the nervous system and get a shift towards that parasympathetic side, we'll see a change in muscle tone, which in most cases will increase our range of motion. And when this doesn't happen, it's usually in the case of people who have connective tissue disorders like Marfan's or anything that already predisposes them to having a little bit more range of motion. So when that's the case, sometimes you actually see a reduction in range of motion, and that would count as a positive response because we're getting a bit more stability. It also could lead to you feeling like the movement is easier or you're less stiff. And if we looked at a neutral response, repeating that movement would just feel the same, whereas a negative response could reduce your range of motion, provided you don't have something going on like a connective tissue disorder, or maybe like increased discomfort as you're moving through that position. Or it could also create outputs like dizziness or nausea. If you end up getting a negative output, then you might need to alter the dosage of the drill by playing with factors like the number of repetitions you do, as well as the intensity. And I can go through how you would do that in the drills that we're doing today, but the idea is if you had a headache and you wanted to take some Tylenol or ibuprofen for the headache, you know that it wouldn't make sense to take the whole bottle, but taking 1 or 2 pills would be a good dose. And obviously, our nervous systems are all different, but we want to be able to find the right dosage for you. So if you are getting negative outputs, sometimes we just need to play with the intensity or the repetitions or the position of the exercise so that it doesn't feel like it's creating that threat in your system. Hopefully that makes sense. And in the Rewired for Resilience program, we use these neuro drills all the time to practice changing the state of our nervous systems, usually so that we can reduce that threat level in our buckets. But sometimes, if we are moving into like a more collapsed or flop state and we need to bring up the energy, it can be useful to just have the ability to move where we want to in terms of our regulation. So what that can mean for you is that in your daily life, if you know you're someone who really wants to be able to speak up at a staff meeting or request to change your schedule, but you haven't yet, you can use these drills to help support the behavior changes that you want to make. Now, each of us have unique nervous systems, obviously, and these are based on our lifestyle, our experiences, as well as deficits in our system. So let's say, for example, that you have a previous injury, and maybe this is a concussion or some kind of injury that affects your visual system. If you are always getting deficits in your, say, your every time you move your eyes, they skip a little bit, or you have trouble focusing, that is a constant level of threat in your system that over time will make it easier for you to get to that level at which an output is produced. So when we have that deficit underlying in our system, it's really important to learn how to rehabilitate these things so that we have more of a buffer before we get these outputs. And we can all learn how to regulate our nervous systems using the right dosage of the right drills. So let's go ahead and start with our first drill. This is where we're going to need something to smell. And I have a confession to make. In this movie, one of the reasons why I love Love Actually is because Rowan Atkinson is in the movie, and Rowan Atkinson was Mr. Bean, and Mr. Bean was the best. So I thought this drill would be kind of funny because in that scene in Love Actually where Harry is buying the necklace for Mia, yes, and Mr. Bean is the clerk, and he starts like this ridiculous packaging where he's like putting cinnamon sticks and lavender and like crushing things up into the bag, and Harry's like, no, just hurry it up. Like, I'm buying a present for someone who's not my wife. Like, are you gonna dip it in yogurt, covered it in chocolate buttons? So, like Mr. Bean, we're gonna use the power of our sense of smell as an input into our threat bucket. So, this is called cranial nerve 1 or smell activation. So, what I want you to do is grab whatever it is that you're smelling. For me, if it's a small enough thing, I just hold it with these two fingers and have my index finger free. And then what we're going to do is plug one nostril and start to smell in the other nostril as you tap up and down the open nostril. And we're going to take a few breaths here, so eyes can be open or closed. And I want you to ask yourself, I know you've chosen your scent, so it's maybe less surprising. If you didn't know what you were smelling, would you be able to identify the smell? And from 0 being not at all to 10 being very strong, how strong is that scent? So 2 or 3 breaths, maybe 15 to 20 seconds, depending on how long it takes for you to take those breaths. And then you can take a breath in and out. We're just letting our nervous system catch up for a second. And then we're going to do our reassessment. So see whether that makes any difference to how your neck feels to turn from side to side, or your shoulders to lift up. And you might notice a change in all 3 of these movements, or one or none. And then reach your arms out in front of you, see if you can rotate. That is better for me. Great. How did you guys do with that? Better, worse, no change? Oh, I've got one better.
I feel like my shoulders were better.
Shoulders are better. Nice. Okay. Kathy, any difference?
Yeah, definitely. The last one the most.
Nice. The trunk
something.
rotation? Great.
Right. But both of the earlier ones a bit more
Okay.
movement.
Cool. Let's try our other nostril because the sense of smell does not cross over in our brains. So when we just did, say, I just did my right nostril, it affects the right hemisphere, whereas when you switch, you're going to be affecting the ipsilateral, or the same side nostril. So plug your other nostril and then start tapping up and down the open nostril. And just ask yourself the same questions again. If I didn't know what scent this was, would I be able to identify it? And how intense is the smell on a scale of 0 to 10? And sometimes what I find is that when it seems less intense, you actually get a stronger response on that side. All right, you can pop your scent down, take a breath in and out. And then let's reassess our neck movement. Oh, that's better for me. And I know sometimes people have asked, well, we keep doing the movements, aren't they going to get better? But if you do a drill and it's not positively, or your nervous system isn't positively responding to it, then you definitely see a change for the worse. So, how are you guys doing here with the second nostril? Rotation.
Not as good,
Not as good. Oh,
but neck was better.
okay. Yeah. So it can change a little bit, and they're also obviously we're testing different joints here. Sometimes what I've found is that yeah, my sense of smell will improve a couple things, but other drills will have a stronger effect on different areas, like torso rotation can really be impacted by your vestibular inputs. So keep that in mind. If it improves one thing, it still means that it's boosting your nervous system and moving you in the right direction. And I have clients whose necks get sore and sometimes they have a hard time shoulder checking. So they'll leave a scent in their car so that they can do this exercise before they drive and feel safer and more limber when they might have to do quick head movements, which would normally bring on some pain. And if you need other ideas on how to use this, I have a face wash that I really like the smell of. So even if you're in the shower or washing your face or who knows, washing the dishes with a dish soap that smells great, you can do the same drill. And I just want you to think of ways that it can be easier to do without putting in any extra effort, because obviously all of you are busy and it doesn't make sense to give you stuff that's going to take a lot of extra time. That's why we're going with bust your holiday stress in 60 seconds or less. So now we don't need that scent anymore. We're going to move on to our second drill, and this one's called burst breathing. This is actually one of my favorite drills for when I'm feeling stressed, and it might seem counterintuitive to use this drill because it's a bit more upregulating, but what happens when we're more anxious or stressed and activated is that our higher level thinking gets hijacked by our amygdala and our old brain. So we end up feeling a little bit out of control in terms of like our heart racing and maybe our palms sweating. And because breathing, as we talked about on the first day, is one of those autonomic nervous system responses that is usually involuntary, but we can take control over. When we can consciously reset our breathing mechanics and take back control of breathing, it brings you out of that 4F, fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, and then back to a normal breathing rhythm. So we kind of have to go up to get back down in this one. And I find that this can be especially useful during the busy holiday season when we're already more likely to be in an activated state. So if you have a runny nose or anything, it might be helpful to blow your nose because we're going to be making quick sniffs through the nose. And yeah, just know that it could be helpful to clear your sinuses a bit first. This drill is also amazing for pain and anxiety. So if either of those things are outputs of your threat bucket, then you could use this on a daily basis to start bringing that threat level down. And I'll say that this drill is fast and shallow. So we're thinking about moving the air in through our nose about down to our collarbone. It's not a diaphragmatic breath or anything like that. So what we're going to do is practice with a quick exhale like you're puffing out air. So we're going and then we're going to follow it with a sniff through the nose. So we'll just practice each one a couple times. This is where you might need the tissue. And they're just quick puffs and sniffs. And it might feel, as we do this, we're going to be puffing and sniffing, and you'll feel like there's this trampoline bouncing up and down in your rib cage, which is your diaphragm moving up and down quickly. And most people will get a good response from this as long as you don't go for too long. 8 to 10 seconds is probably the most you want to do, especially because after that time, you could either lose coordination because we're trying to make it fast, but that hard coordination, I don't know. I think it's like trying to pat your head and rub your tummy sometimes. It can be a little bit hard to sustain that, or you might start to hyperventilate and then develop air hunger. So we're not, again, going forever with this drill. So let's start slower. Let's puff and sniff. See if we can speed that up. Feel that trampoline, and then take a little break, and then we'll do it as fast as we can for about 10 seconds. If you need to take a couple normal breaths here, go ahead. And then let's go. Okay, take a breath in and out. Ooh. Hopefully you're not feeling lightheaded or dizzy. If so, we overdid it. And let's do our neck rotation again. That one usually helps me. That feels better. And try lifting your arms up and overhead. Nice. Good job. And then fingers out in front of you, rotating. Oh, yay, it's getting better. I've got a nod for getting better over here. Anybody else? Yeah, nice. Okay. Keep that one in your back pocket. It's one that's really nice to practice. Obviously, it's easier to access these tools when you're stressed if you're practicing them when you're not stressed. So if you are able to do this, it'll help you to improve the coordination, and that helps to bring about that positive response. So I definitely feel like I use this drill when I have a lot of pent up energy, especially if I don't have time to go and move a lot, like a walk or a run. It's really nice for times like that to feel better really quickly. And then when you're feeling a little calmer, then it can be easier to get into something like meditation or like a yin yoga practice where the idea is to rest and be calm. But you can't really do that easily when you're already in an upregulated sympathetic state. So you can use this as like a transition practice to come from here down a little bit. All right. Does anyone have questions, or does that one make sense? Good. Okay, perfect. I know that some of you could not hear Joanna's version of All I Want for Christmas Is You that I played at the beginning of this session, but our third drill is going to be a vagus nerve priming drill, and it's called vocal toning. And if you don't want to do this because you're not in a space where you can kind of sing or hum scales, don't worry, but it's something that you can try maybe in the shower where it's a bit more private. And in terms of our test and retest, you can use one or all of the movements that we've been doing, or if you wanted to, you could try breathing, or you could use the drill itself as an assessment, because we're going to be activating our vocal cords, which are innervated by the vagus nerve. And usually when we do this drill, you'll hear kind of a catch or a sticky spot through range. And it should get better as we practice it. So if you are able to, here, we could even test our breathing. So if I tilt my screen down a little bit, I could put my hands on either side of my rib cage and just see, because the vagus nerve obviously goes through down towards our gut. So we're going to be impacting it along its root. So there's another assessment that you could try. And then what we'll do is also notice if you have other indications of moving into a more relaxed state, like increased salivation would be one, or yawning, or even feeling like your voice is a little bit lower. So let's go through this drill. I apologize if you have to hear me do this because I don't hit the high notes very well, but we're gonna try and either hum or move through the scales using any kind of sound. I was telling someone earlier, like using ohm can be helpful, and that's maybe why saying ohm at the end of the yoga class is so nice because it really stimulates your vocal cords and creates that resonance. So you could try mm, and then come back down. Mm, mm, mm. And as you do this, I would just like you to focus on parts in that range that feel kind of hard to do, whether that's like catching or a little bit sticky, and see if you can slow down and focus on those areas. So, maybe Bosco wants to try. And with this drill, ideally you would do it for about a minute, but it doesn't have to be that long if you're feeling self conscious about it. Or you could try different sounds like, oh, oh, if you have kids, you could also practice reading funny books using different voices. And that is another great way to stimulate your vocal cords and therefore your vagus nerve. So let's take a look and see how we did in terms of our objective reassessments. So turning your head side to side actually does help for me, as much as I don't love humming scales. And then how about shoulder flexion? Nice, good. And then let's do our trunk rotation. And I haven't forgotten breathing, so we can reassess hands on either side of the rib cage and just seeing if you get a bit more breath expansion or if it was asymmetrical before, whether it feels more even. That one might be hard to tell. Fair enough. How did you do with this drill?
It was good. This was my fave so far.
It was your fave. Oh, that's exciting. How about you, Kathy?
It seemed to improve.
Nice.
Maybe more with the last one.
Yeah.
The first two.
That's great. That's exciting. So with this drill, when you are planning to do some public speaking, or if you know there's going to be a chance to speak up and set a boundary, this would be a great drill to do to prime your vagus nerve and your vocal cords, as well as to help bring down some of that stress response. And doing this exercise is also great in that it takes pressure off of your pelvic floor. So working on like the respiratory diaphragm as well as the other, diaphragms and piston systems in our bodies. So you can tuck that away if you're feeling like you're coughing when you're, if you're leaking when you're sneezing or coughing. This can be a good way to help increase the flexibility around your pelvic floor and your breathing. And as you can see, with all of these drills, we can do them under 30 seconds. Apart from the explanation, I know when I was teaching, it takes a little bit longer the first time around, but once you get the hang of the drills, you can do them in less than 60 seconds to start shifting the state of your nervous system in a pretty significant way, which is cool. So I know that for me, with the burst breathing, not only does my range of motion improve, but I also feel like my head is a bit clearer. And the biggest takeaway that I'm hoping you come away with after our session is that being able to do these neuro drills is the key to start regulating your nervous system, and that even in this crazy busy holiday season, You can de-stress in 60 seconds using one of these drills, and it can be while you're multitasking. You could do this at a stop, like a traffic light or a stop sign. You don't have to set aside time in your day to do these drills. You can if you want to, but I know that not all of us have that extra time, so it's nice to be able to do one when you're, in the shower, or one when you're washing your hands between your patients, and just be able to feel a little bit better as a result. Because when you can do them regularly, we start to see neuroplastic change within our nervous systems, and that will allow you to stay more regulated more often and get to that state more easily, which is what I think a lot of us would like. And I will say that when you can combine this with some of the mindset work that we do within Rewired for Resilience, it starts to have this really cool cumulative effect on our work, our relationships, our moods, energy, and sleep. So, like I said, easy to slide these drills into your day, although I understand if you don't want to be singing at work or, between stressful conversations. So that might be one to do in the car, but it does allow us to, at least for me, if I'm feeling more regulated, I know that I feel better in interactions with clients. And I won't get into it too much, but because our nervous systems co regulate with other nervous systems, when you can feel calmer and more centered, it will help you to show up as a better practitioner for your clients or family member, partner, parent. And with these drills, what I really feel is that you can start to give yourself some of the most powerful evidence which exists, and that's the lived experience of feeling change happening at the level of your nervous system. And being able to show yourself that you can commit to doing this on a regular basis is really key in creating that neuroplastic adaptation. So, my challenge for you is to take one drill from today that worked well for you and stack it onto an existing habit. Depending on the drill, it could be like brushing your teeth or, washing your face, like I talked about, getting stuck at a red light, or if you're really ambitious, walking through a doorway. And then make a promise to yourself to try this for at least maybe a week or so. And as you are able to be consistent with it and it becomes more of a habit, then we're changing those well-worn pathways in our nervous system so that we can then access different responses and produce different outputs in the future. And again, this helps to buffer your nervous system against dysregulation. Well, I am going to wrap it up for today. We're going to keep it short and sweet. We talked about the neuro drills, and I'm hoping that the objective assessments were helpful in getting you to figure out what a positive, negative, or neutral response looks like. And hopefully, as we went through the drills, you could feel that your nervous system's response to the right kind of input was lightning fast as well as systemic. And if you are getting a neutral response from these drills, then I would encourage you, say you didn't feel much difference from the cranial nerve 1 drill, just tap and breathe a little bit longer. See if that makes any difference, or pick a different scent and see if that helps, because I have lemon right here, and citrus scents can be more upregulating, same with like mint. I know someone who does this drill while she grinds her coffee in the morning. I don't know if she's smelling the coffee or she's using something else, but oh, it's after reusing the ground coffee. That's a good idea. And if you love the smell of coffee, why not? So I would like you, if you have any questions for me about the drills or about Rewired for Resilience, to reach out and let me know. I would be happy to chat with you more, especially because if you thought today was kind of fun and you were able to experience being in your body in a different way, then that is definitely what will happen in the group program. So if you did hear my announcement yesterday and it kind of piqued your interest, then I would love to chat more. But I just did want to say, in terms of the time commitment, that the the lectures and the practical sessions that are all pre-recorded are probably where you'll find is the bulk of the time. So typically I would say about like an hour and a half is how long it takes to get through either the lecture, and the practical sessions are shorter. But as I said, I've broken them up into smaller chunks so that it's easier to get through the material. And you can also do it, say, when you're out for a walk or prepping for your dinner or taking the kids to school. But being able to incorporate the habits and the drills into your routine can take a little bit of extra time. So, as I said, a lot of them can be stacked onto other habits that you do, but for some of the systems that we are rehabilitating, like vision or vestibular function, that can sometimes require a bit more of an intentional effort. But yeah, the best part is that if you have any questions or you get stuck, there are people to touch base with, and I'm here to answer your questions at any point. And research does show that, like, we're inundated with information all the time, and more information isn't necessarily better. It's that application and implementation, as well as getting feedback and coaching or help when you're making those changes, that will give you the most difference there. And it'll also help you to customize it. I have this book and I've had it for years, and the title just makes me smile every time. It's called If How To's Were Enough, We Would All Be Skinny, Rich, and Happy. And I know that I can think of people who I work with who know they should change their diet, know they should start exercising or, implementing new things into their routine, but they don't. And that's because they need our support and guidance, your support and guidance, to help create these new behaviors. And the same goes for you and I. I know that I wouldn't be able to have started any of this online coaching stuff without having a coach to tell me what to do, because honestly, there's a lot and it's a whole new world and I just have no idea how it goes. So I did have a client who wanted to share her experience with you, and she has a much more extensive background in functional neurology than I do. And like you, she doesn't have a lot of time to do things. She is a chiropractor, she owns her own clinic, she has 2 kids, she's married, and 2 dogs. And in doing the program, she said that Rewired for Resilience has helped her to come to terms with different ways to be resilient, to adapt to different stressful situations, and being able to allows her to move through the world in this way that just uses her own neurology and biology to ease her symptoms. And she goes on to say that whether those are headaches or gut issues, physical stress in her shoulders from work, or whatever else she's experiencing from being a healthcare professional, she says, I think there's a lot of wealth in the information that Charlotte presents. She presents it in an organized manner. Now I'm like, someone else should read this for me. She presents it in an organized manner that's easy to understand. She walks you through all the different drills, and they work. I always feel better after doing my sessions with her. During the group calls, it's really great to collaborate with other practitioners who are going through the same thing. And I just can't say enough about Charlotte. And I promise you, I didn't pay her to write this. If you're hesitating, I want you to take that step, that leap of faith, and you won't be disappointed. I know there's a time commitment, and myself, I know how busy life can get juggling all these different responsibilities. But if you don't take the time for yourself and fix things now, when are you going to make yourself a priority? So thank you, Alma. I appreciated that from her. And trust me, I know it's really scary to start challenging our old patterns, but if anything I've said today has resonated with you and you're ready to live your life on your own terms, with more energy, feeling more present, and surrounded by a community of support, then I would love to invite you to enroll for the program. And as a reminder, The bonuses for Rewired for Resilience will be going away on December 6th, next Wednesday at midnight, when our workshop recordings come down. But right now, you can still qualify for the instant $300 savings and get started today for as little as $1,497 or $1,697 with a payment plan. But now is the time to announce our prize winners. So unfortunately, she hasn't been able to attend live as much as she would have liked to, but Crystal has been amazing in inviting a lot of her coworkers to come to this event, and for that, Crystal wins the $25 Amazon gift card. Yay! Congratulations, Crystal. And then, drum roll for doing her homework and showing up live. Our spa gift basket box goes to Emily. Congratulations, Emily. Okay, cool. Yay. Thank you so much for coming. And I will put some information, if you're interested, into the chat. And then tomorrow, in our 5th and final session, we're going to be talking about the 5-step secret to breaking the stress cycle once and for all, so that you'll be ready and excited to celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or whatever you celebrate, and ring in the new year. So with that, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope all of you have a wonderful evening, and if you would like the fill in the blanks for today's workbook, you can go ahead and type neuro drills in the chat.